All right, everybody, we're going to get started with today's webinar. Welcome to the presentation, Audit Smarter with Intact, Simplify Findings and Reviews for Maximum Efficiency. I'm Mike Richmond, your host and moderator for today's event. Before we get started, a quick bit of housekeeping. If you're watching this session live, as you are right now, many of you, please feel free to ask questions at any time using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. It's right down there, and then I'll get your questions right over to our speaker. If you have questions and you're watching this on demand, you can still ask questions. Just feel free to email us at info@exemplarglobal.org. And again, we'll get them right over to our speaker. And speaking of the speaker, we're joined today by Thomas O'Day. Thomas, solution engineer at Intact, which is the industry-leading cloud and on-premise ERP technology company for audit, assessment, certification, accreditation, and standards management. And with that, Tom, take it away.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. We know that there's all sorts of webinars out there available, so taking the time out of your day means a lot to us because you could have more important things to do. So you're just showing the interest. We appreciate it, and we're looking forward to discussing a part of our workflow, part of hopefully your workflows as well, and probably I would argue the most important part of the audit workflow. That's obviously the findings and corrective actions, and then, of course, the reviews on top of that. And so, without further ado, we'll jump right into it. And so, Michael had a great point. And what you're seeing here, we are the industry leader in testing, inspection, certification services. ERP system is kind of how we're segmented in terms of the software industry. But we are a purpose-built solution where the founders started the process. They were actually farmers based in Austria, and there was an outbreak of, I believe, swine flu. And so they built the system to just help everyone stay on top of this data to manage those kind of outbreaks and food safety checks, organic certifications. And then it grew and grew and grew. And we realized that we can really just support any sort of audit functionality. And so now we're in the management certification side of things, product certification, internal audits, all of those kind of important day-to-day operations that make sure consumer goods and everything are performing as we need them to perform in today's world. So what we're looking at here is our end-to-end workflow. And so obviously you can see we can go from application all the way to invoicing, all within the Intact platform. But today we're going to focus on, like I said, what I think is arguably the most important aspect is those findings and corrective actions. And then afterwards that, before your certification, reviewing everything to make sure that that certification is correct and that the accreditation bodies will be happy with your processes as well. So jumping into the findings and corrective actions portion here, and also just to set the kind of the lay of the land for the plan today, we'll have a few slides first about the findings, then we'll jump over to the solution actually, and we'll show them in action. And then we'll talk about reviews, and then we'll show some of that within the system. And then finally, like Mike said, we'll have a little Q&A. So please don't hesitate to chime in with anything that comes up as we continue here. So findings. Findings management, like I said, very important. And a lot of the time, if you don't have a solution in place, it is a very manual process. Lots of spreadsheets and emails where you're hoping to get a response from whether it's the auditee or maybe your auditor if you're managing it on a higher level. And so it just makes it that much harder. It makes it easier for things to slip through the cracks, and it makes it harder to stay on top of all of those things. And then you're wasting your time following up on individual items instead of getting big picture results, having everything centralized for you. And so that's why, like I said, we've built that end-to-end workflow for identification of those findings to the closure, all within the system, so that nothing's missed. You have the traceability for the accreditation, so you have that audit history and that audit trail that they can come when it's time to recertify. And also, obviously, like I just said, not having to send individual emails and update separate spreadsheets for each of the audits or even findings. That just saves everyone time. And so you can see, like it says on the screen, our customers report about a 34% efficiency gain just through the digital NCR workflows that we offer. So one of the ways that we really help increase those efficiencies when generating findings is during the audit portion. So when an auditor is completing the checklist, or if it maybe is not a checklist, it could also be a process-based audit. But we give you the ability to create findings within those checklists. And you can see the screenshot on screen here. And we'll also click into it a bit more as we check out the solution. But obviously, when you're trying to keep things organized, you can have your SharePoint folders and everything, and you have to make sure people have the right access to everything. So there's just a lot of moving parts, a lot of variables. So what we do is we capture the findings. We even allow you to attach files, documents, evidence of the corrective actions being implemented. All of that can be housed within the system, and then they can even be attributed to individual clauses uh, of the audit itself. So this standard, as you can see, clause 4.2, you have an individual finding. So again, just that much more organized, that much more efficient for you. It just will make the operations run that much smoother. And we take it a step further. Maybe the screen doesn't do it justice, so I'll be sure to point it out when we move over to the demo. But part of your findings is obviously, and it depends on everyone's workflows and processes, but you have to capture all of that good data. So whether it is the corrective action or root cause analysis, you need to be able to capture that and centralize it, and then also report on it. So what we do, and you'll see in just a moment here, we have almost a custom form builder where you can collect whatever kind of text box data and then, like I said, also files as well. And then those can all then be brought together into a standardized report. Again, just increasing the efficiency of everything where you're able to really have confidence that the reports are going to contain all of the data that you're looking for and that it's going to always be consistent so that it's always going to be the same structure. Just makes things that much more professional and that much more efficient. Another way that we kind of increase the traceability of everything is with the activity log. And so obviously a challenge in the industry is just keeping those accreditation bodies happy, making sure that they have all of the data and details that they require. And so with our activity log, any change to the in this case findings, but just kind of system wide, just to step back a step here, we have activity logs that just create those audit trails of changes within the system so that everyone's always accountable. And you have that kind of different statuses. You can see where things stand, and then you can report on those as well. So again, just giving you a massive level of oversight so that you don't have to do that additional admin when the accreditation bodies do come knocking. It just keeps everyone honest and it keeps everyone on top of things. All right, and then just a couple more slides here before we'll jump into the demo on the findings and tracking. So another thing that I know the auditors love because it just makes life easier. But then also speaking to those standardized reports and just the professional level of kind of the consistent language that you can offer. We offer findings templates. And so that way your auditors aren't spending time entering the same severity level and deadline date for each one of the findings as they go. They can be templated so that finding of this nature always has that same deadline, always has the same responsible party assigned. Just a ton of efficiencies gained. That seems simple, but again, it really just helps everyone operate more efficiently and also that much more professionally when it comes to the reports. The audit report can have all of the same consistent language, like I said. So it really just makes things look that much nicer. And then, of course, we've got all our findings captured. And like I said, probably the hardest part of the whole procedure in terms of closing those out is getting that auditee participation. And so, what we do to answer that is through our auditee portal. Any of the audit companies or audited companies will have access to a findings track and solve module. And so, what this is a back and forth portal. So, after the auditor or the reviewer, however it works in your workflow, after they generate any of those findings, they're able to send them directly to the auditee company, and whatever contacts you'd like to associate with those companies, whoever needs to be in charge of, you can assign individual findings to individuals within the auditee company. So it can get very granular. But then they're able themselves to submit corrective actions, evidence of implementation, photos, all of that good stuff. So takes a little bit of the pressure and the workload off of the audit team and the CBs and puts some of that onus back on the auditees, keeps them honest. And again, just keeps people on top of things. So that way they have all their deadlines organized in one location. They can see less excuses in terms of, oh, sorry, I just missed that email. As long as they're logging into the auditee portal, they'll have this front and center for their analysis and review. All right, so that does it for my spiel on the finding slides. So now we're going to jump over and check out the platform in action. And so I will log in here as an auditor. And then just to review some of the things that we talked about, just to give you an idea. We're going to keep it pretty high level just for the sake of time and also because we are just going to be kind of focused on one section. So if you do want to see more or you want us to build a use case specific demo, we are more than happy to just reach out via the website, intact-systems.com, schedule a demo with us, and we'd be happy to dive deep with you and your use case. So what you're seeing here is the auditor's kind of landing page workflow. These are our audit orders, but what we'll look at obviously today is the findings. And something that's nice about this system is just a very consistent kind of view. So anywhere you see one of these tables, you're able to export it to Excel. And that can then be used to kind of crunch those numbers even further. If you want to get super granular, ad hoc reporting, build out any of those functionalities, tables and graphs, all of that good stuff. Pivot tables. I know everybody loves a pivot table. So we have the ability to export those tables to Excel, and you can dive into the data that much further. But what we have here is just a system that keeps things organized. So this is, again, all of Alexander, that's our auditor here, all of the findings that he or she is responsible for. And then beyond that, tons of ways to digest this data in the system. So obviously we have kind of the all view right now and the past due deadlines,
Hey,
our,
hey, Tom, I don't want to interrupt you, but real quick, we
yes.
had a question from a user who asked if you could possibly maximize the screen. And I noticed that too. It's a little bit small. If you had a chance to make that a little bit bigger, yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Is
that's
that
that's
better?
that's great. Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. Awesome. So yeah, so we are on the findings table, the findings dashboard for Alexander. And so, like I was saying, lots of ways that you can then digest this data to make it easier for yourself. So in our case, we want to look at the Sky Solutions auditee companies, um, findings and what we have on tap. And so again, everything's tracked. Those red ones, if we go back, were obviously the past due. So again, just quick glance hits of information that lets you know where things stand, who you need to follow up with. But then clicking into one, you can see all of the kind of good features that come with one of these findings. So again, just tons of data points that you can act on. So obviously we have the auditee company, all that information, the services and the audit number that it's directly related to, the actual checklist item and finding. So this was obviously what was entered into the checklist during the audit. And so then beyond that, a ton of additional options. So deadline details, again, like I said, these can be templated so that they're automatically populated based on the findings model and findings level. Um, or these can be not even offered at all. Again, there's a ton of flexibility in this system where obviously then we have those detailed advanced data forms for the audit or the findings, excuse me. So then these corrective actions, if maybe your industry doesn't require a root cause analysis, then we can just drop that text box right off for you. And we can drop the entire thing if it's a very simple process for you. So what's nice is just a lot of flexibility. Again, we can tailor the system to exactly your workflows. And then from there, you'll just gain those efficiencies. All right, so you see our different data points, all of those advanced fields for capturing, again, whatever you need to capture. And so we'll go ahead and actually generate a new finding here, just to get back to that checklist-based ability that we give, and I think is super helpful. So what I'm going to do to illustrate that is get into one of our audit orders here, and we'll stick with Sky Solutions. So we're going to see, and so we have an audit in progress. So I'll just go ahead and use this one here. This is also just a little brief sneak peek for you into the other sides of the system. So again, if anything catches your eye, you want to see more, please schedule a demo with us. I would be happy to show you whatever your heart desires. All right, so we're in our checklist here. And like I said, you can create these findings by clause and item within the checklist, or you also have the ability to find or create general findings. And we'll get to that next. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and create a minor finding on this. And what that does is initiates the findings module here. And I'm able to generate one myself. And it's obviously the more manual process. Or I can go ahead and generate one from a template. So in this case, just to show that off as well, because I do think it really will resonate with all of the auditors in attendance. It's nice when you have, if you're doing an ISO 9001, it's always, you're obviously checking the same this same criteria at day in and day out. And so having just that standardized language available to you where the system can then auto-populate it for you. And there we go. We have our 6 months. We already marked it as a minor. And you can even then assign it to a specific person, like I was saying, in this in the auditee company. So we'll go ahead and assign that to the quality manager. As easy as that. So that's how you generate a finding. And then as you go step by step, you're able to generate more and more. Uncheck that one and just use our templated one. And there you go. So that's as easy as the checklist-based template and templated findings. And then from there, if we want, I can save and then move over to our findings tab here. You're actually then able to generate those general findings. So this is outside or maybe not as specifically related to a certain clause or a criteria. You can generate them as well. And that's that same view that we looked at in the first place, where you have, again, all of the options here, all of the good stuff. You can capture as much data or as little data. You can require boxes, not require anything. So again, tons of flexibility, however you need to make things happen. All right, so then we just created our, it looks like we used the same template as last time. So in this case, just some other nice functionality here. Sometimes I know, again, depending on the workflow, maybe the audit report isn't generated until after all of the findings have been generated. So what we do to help you out, if that is kind of your process, we still can make the auditor's life a little bit easier by offering the findings report. And so as simple as selecting which findings you want to include, go ahead and print that report. And the system will organize those all into a nice PDF that can be sent out, distributed. We can set up automatic distribution lists that are based on, again, whatever kind of parameters you set and the responsible parties that you connect to the different individual audit orders. And then just to show you what that looks like, quick example here. We have just a real powerful reporting engine. It's an SAP function actually called Crystal reports. And so you can include logic in these reports as they're generated. So if you only want them to include the major and none of the opportunities for improvement, the system can actually kind of divide and conquer that for you itself. And as you can see, you can make it into your company colors and add your logo. And obviously the formatting is totally flexible as well. So we really do try to make the system work the exact way that you need it to. All right, so we've got our findings report generated. We're good to go. All of those findings have been, actually, no, we have to send it out. So last thing to show you with the findings is that findings tracking and solving where the auditees are able to respond. So what I'm going to do here is click into this, and then you'll see that I can request the corrective action. And when I hit execute, that then gets sent over to the Sky Solutions auditee portal. And now we'll actually log out real quick and log in as Sky Solutions. There we go. All right, so now you can see just some of the kind of nice function or features of the auditee portal here. So they'll have like a pie chart of all of their required tasks and where things stand. They can see the status of their audits, but again, we can talk more about that on a follow-up audit, or excuse me, follow-up demo. But what we're here to see is the non-conformities and how they are then able. So see from the client, Charles here from Sky Solutions needs to get into this corrective action, or excuse me, finding, and submit any corrective action. So, and then you can see again for the limitation on who can edit what. Obviously, you don't need the auditee changing any of the finding information. They only have access to the corrective action, the root cause analysis. They can add files, and then when they're done, they can submit that. And Alexander, our auditor, will be notified that this has been submitted. So again, everyone's staying on top of things. It's all organized in one central location, single source of truth. So it's just that much easier and that much more efficient to work with. Okay, so that about does it. Actually, one other quick thing I do want to show was that activity log. Again, super important functionality where you have the accreditation bodies knocking on the door asking for that audit trail and things. So just to show that real quick. So Alexander received the corrective actions from Sky Solutions, and now we can see where things stand on all of their findings. And so we'll just go into this one here. And just to show you how that activity log works. Again, super helpful. And what's nice is it'll capture the automatic events within the system. So if a deadline passes or if an email is sent out, it will log that. But then you can actually log your own events. So you can add things as if you follow up outside of the system, or if anything changes, you can capture those as well. So there's flexibility there in terms of how that data is gathered. Okay, so now with that, I think we've gotten through. We have really thoroughly reviewed, I'd say, the findings functionality here. And so we're just going to jump over to, I'm going to set us up for when we get back after some more slides here. But now we'll move into the review side of things. All right. And so obviously review a bit more straightforward, a little simpler in terms of process, but there are still just a lot of workflows and different ways of doing it. And so what we do is we offer just the ability to have a 4i review, a 6i review, an 8i review, or if you're a small operation, you want to keep it simple, you can go 2i. It's there's tons of flexibility in terms of the classifications, the user roles, and the permissioning. So we just give you the ability to really divvy up the work however you need to, so that you make sure that everything is done correctly and properly. And so one way, and this is more of the six or even maybe eight I review, is the administrative review that we offer. And so that is a first layer of review where after the audit is complete, the auditor will submit it more so to the back office and the planners, generally speaking. That's usually how we see it used by our clients. And they're able to then log in and just do a kind of a high level review of things just to make sure before it goes for the technical review that all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, the files are attached, the correct standards were checked, just so that you're not wasting people's time ahead of the technical review. So that's just that first layer we can offer you. Or and then usually kind of the more standard offering is the technical review. Some of our clients bring this all together into one, so that the reviewer then is obviously just checking everything. But again, we can segment and assign user roles to really divvy up the work. So the technical review is obviously where they're checking against the actual standards, making sure that the auditor's answers and responses and findings are all correct. And of course, with that, the findings, because I know in some use cases, like our organic customers, the reviewers are the ones who actually generate the findings. So the auditor can leave their comments, and then the reviewer is able to actually generate the findings. So again, tons of flexibility. Whatever your workflow needs, we have that supported for you. And so that you'll know that all of the eyes that need to see it and review it and approve it for certification will definitely have access, and only access to the correct data that you want to give them access to. And so how we do that and what we'll take a look at in just a moment here is through the auditor reviewer feedback system. And so what's nice is those checklists that we were looking at, you can actually add sections to the checklist that are only for the reviewer. Alexander will be, and we'll hopefully have one available. Alexander won't see it, and so then the reviewer signs in, excuse me, sees all of the checklist that Alexander did, and then has their own additional steps to take care of. Again, just to make sure that everything is done properly. And then also what they're able to do is have a bit of a back and forth. And again, you'll see it in just a moment here, but it's almost like a chat bot or chat functionality. It's not a bot, obviously, it's the auditor and the reviewer. But if they're both plugged into the system, they can send feedback. The reviewer can send feedback to the auditor can respond with updates and changes, and then the reviewer can mark things as completed and satisfied. So again, you have all of that audit trail so that things are marked properly. And then when those accreditation bodies do come, you know you can confidently provide all of that data to them. And so that takes us to just some screenshots again, and we'll see it in just a moment here. And then lastly, before we do, is the ability to then, obviously, we're not going to get into certification today, but you can, again, divvy up permissions and create approvals where, so to speak, taking a step back, the 6I principle is the admin review and then the technical review after the auditor. So those are your 6Is, three sets of two. You can even have the 8I review where after that technical review, a whole nother person can then have the ability to approve and certify things. So you really can kind of create a chain of command, so that there's no conflicts of interest or anything like that. And so we give you that ability where the reviewers can recommend certification, and then a different user has to come in and actually kind of hit that final button to generate the certificate. Or again, if your workflow is a bit simpler, you can have the reviewer make that recommendation and generate that certificate themselves. So again, tons of flexibility, just to make that review process and those final few steps of the whole certification process that much more efficient. So to show that in action, and this will be pretty quick just because obviously it's a pretty straightforward situation here. So we're going to go back to our Sky Solutions audit here and what we can do. So Alexander will say is done with all of her work here. So she'll go ahead and validate everything. There we go. All right, so now our data is validated. Again, another just little system check to make sure that things are done properly. If there's any checklist items that maybe Alexander had missed, the system wouldn't let her proceed without completing it. And Alexander can make a recommendation and then they can send it over to that review pool. So they're done. But what's nice here, and actually just to show you, um, you can have different statuses. So if it was one of those situations where the findings have to be completed until the audit report can be generated and the audit can be considered complete, you can move it to a different workflow. And so that way it'll sit in this findings workflow and give everyone access to take care of all of those findings, knock out the corrective actions, and then move it over to the review team for finalization and generation of the certificate. Just another nice little functionality that we offer to cover all of those different use cases. But in this case, we'll go ahead and send it to the review pool here and finalize. And now I will, excuse me, log out as Alexander and log in as Maria, our reviewer. All right, and just like how Alexander saw only her audit orders, it goes the same with Maria. So those are just those permissions and user roles and classifications in action. Just a quick little display of that. But Maria is able to take on, this is our Sky Solutions 9001 audit here. So she can accept the responsibility as the reviewer. And that's actually now our filters in action. These are the new untouched reviews. And now I have to go over to my open reviews because I accepted that responsibility. Go ahead and edit. Okay, and so as you can see, same general view of data in terms of what Maria can see without the ability to edit things. But then what she does have now is this, you see here, the feedback overview, and like I said, like a chat window almost. And then each of the steps now has the ability to add feedback. So we have our finding in here, and you can see there's a findings from the previous audit. And we'll say just a little feedback. It's actually, they are good to go. And they can submit that. And now you'll see in the feedback that this comment just went back to Alexander. If I were to log back in as Alexander and open up this audit order, I would see this from Maria, and then I'd be able to respond. In this case, I'm responding as Maria, but just to avoid switching back and forth too much, let's say satisfied, if I can spell correctly, and hit send, and then Maria can mark it resolved. And there you go. So then it's obviously tracked there. You can see the history. If you go to show all, you'll see everything. And then just to see here if we have, yes, so we have a review. So obviously, like I said, Alexander wasn't able to finish the audit and move it to that next workflow status without making sure that all of these were validated and had either a finding or a green check mark. And so now you see that this last item here is a new item from just Maria. And so did you double check all the documents? She can confidently say yes, add any comments, and then save and validate that. And then also, just like I was saying before, maybe the reviewers generate their findings. They have that ability too. So they can add findings at the top level. They can see all of the findings associated with this. So there you see our missing password. You can see the status of the different corrective actions. So you can make sure that Alexander is staying on top of the client to get those corrective actions submitted. There's just, again, a lot of just small automations that keeps things organized so that you're able to move confidently through the system. All right, so we'll say nothing to do with the findings. Maria is comfortable with where things stand. So then just to show you our last little feature here, in terms of those workflow and decision making statuses, you can obviously give your recommendation or your review result and submit that as positive. And then you can actually, in the certification side of things, like I was saying, if Maria is kind of authorized and permitted to generate the certifications, you can see here, she's able to certify down to the product level. We can get super granular with things. Again, please follow up for an additional demo if you want to see how that all works. And then she can then even generate the certificates herself. In this case, she's able to give that ability through her permissions. But yeah, so that is just about it in terms of the findings and review workflows. Again, if there's anything you want to see further on or something that maybe you think I didn't cover that you were hoping to see, please follow up with us and get a demo, and we'd be happy to dive into your specific use cases. So with that, I will move it on to our Q&A section.
Yes, thank you. Excellent job, Tom. Really, really good overview of the system as it applies again to simplifying audits and findings and reviews. Really
Excellent.
good job. So we
Appreciate
have
it.
questions coming in. We've had a bunch of questions actually, and
Awesome.
there's a few of them here that I'd like to address to you directly and have you respond to. So we had one of our viewers ask kind of a two-part question. First, did I miss the risk assessment step? That was early, so maybe you might have covered it later. And also, he asked, does the system allow trending by nonconformance symptoms and root causes?
Yeah, so the risk assessment, you didn't miss it. We didn't, I guess, fully show it, but it would be handled by those custom data fields within the findings, where you can include. So it's not limited to just text boxes. So if there's any sort of tables and matrices, drop downs that you want to include in terms of the risk analysis, we can absolutely support that. And then for the second part of the question, sorry, Mike, do you?
The second part, I have to scroll back now to see that again. Hold on a second. Does the system allow trending by nonconformance
Right.
symptoms and root causes?
Yes. So you can have that ad hoc. So you'd be able to export the tables to Microsoft. And then we also have some pretty cool tools with some AI functionality where they can analyze data and generate reports based on findings and the different types. Or we'll have a lot of our clients will use BI tools, so Tableau or a Power BI to then access all of those data points and show the trends that you're looking for.
Excellent, thank you. Another question. This is one that we've gotten in the past on similar presentations. What is a security to stop other organizations in seeing specific organizations' information? So talk about some of the security login information.
Sure. Yeah. So classifications and permissions are what we call it. So you can set just I forget what the total number of combinations of permissions you can have, but it is robust, and so you can determine which each individual person can and can't see. And then that obviously goes along with the companies. So none of the auditees would be seeing each other's information, obviously. And then you can limit which auditors can see which audit orders and even entity information based on qualifications. So if someone's not authorized for a 9001 audit, then there's just no chance that they would ever see one. And then you can even get even more granular there and say, unless it's specifically assigned to them, they will never see it. So we just have a ton of rules in place that make sure that the users are only seeing the data that they're permitted to see.
Excellent, thank you for that. Another question from one of our viewers. The Intact platform clearly streamlines audit findings, corrective actions, and administrative reviews across certification cycles. How does Intact ensure interoperability or data exchange with other quality or compliance management systems to provide a single source of truth across multi-standard organizations managing ISO 9001, 14001, and 27001 simultaneously? It's kind of a complex
That's
question. Yeah.
that's an impressive question.
Yeah.
Um, and so simply put, APIs. So we have an open API format, RESTful APIs, and then we actually have some SOAP APIs if it's a bit more of an outdated system. So whatever kind of data you want to flow and be the source of the truth. So a lot of our clients will use like Salesforce as their CRM, and that then determines all of the customer data and the services and even the audit projects. So we have a good ability. If the other if the other guys can open it up to the APIs, then I would be confident in saying that we can definitely connect the two.
Superb. That's very helpful. Does the system provide information on containment? It's kind of an open-ended question, but maybe you can kind of address it in terms of containing issues that might pop up.
Yeah, I mean that again goes with those advanced data fields within the findings in terms of it's again, whatever information you need to capture with those findings and responses from whether it's you guys as the auditors or what they need to come back as the auditee company for certification, what they need to provide to move
Mhm.
forward, we can capture that.
Excellent. This next question is kind of aligned to that in terms of the continuity of reporting. Does the system include a section for reporting to regulators or certification bodies? I would imagine as well.
Yeah, again, we so those some of the reports that I just showed up. Actually, I only showed one, that findings report, but those crystal reports are we can get super intense, and we can have all sorts of custom reports built for you during the implementation, or if it's something simpler. We have online templates where it can be kind of a templated report that then you can still edit ahead of time. So there's a lot of options in terms of the reporting.
Mhm. I've had some questions, one particular about the user friendliness. It's kind of a general question, but you kind of walk through it a little bit. But in terms of how easily it is to kind of use the system right from the jump, what would you say about the user friendliness?
Yeah, it definitely is. And it wasn't maybe displayed too well today just because we jumped into the middle of the whole process with the findings. But it is very straightforward. And again, through the classifications and permissions, you're kind of only going to be operating in the places you're allowed to. And so the system just, it's very click and then move on to the next step. Add your text, click something, move on to the next step. So I think it's very user friendly, and we actually train our clients to be the super users, and then they train their employees and their clients. So I think that definitely speaks to the user friendliness because if it was a pain, they wouldn't they wouldn't sign up for that.
That's a good point. So we have a lot of other questions here. I don't I think they're kind of a little bit out of the scope of this particular presentation today. A lot of questions about how the system compares to other third-party platforms and cost questions and things of that nature. So all of you that are watching this now, if you're registered for this event or if you're watching it on demand, you'll be contacted and you'll have a chance to ask your questions directly about that, and I'm sure the Intact folks would love to address that with you, Tom, or the rest of the
Absolutely.
members of the team. Some folks have also asked us about access to the slide deck. You and I can talk about that. I don't think there's any problem with that. You'll let us know if we can provide that to the attendees.
Yeah, that's not up to me, but
Okay.
I can certainly I can certainly ask. I don't see why not. So,
Good.
yeah, I will definitely follow up with you, Mike.
Many of you have asked that, and I've jotted down. You'll see that I've answered you directly through the Q&A button. So many of you have asked that question, and we'll get back to you about that. You will all receive again tomorrow, within the next 24 hours, a recording of this. So you'll be able to review and stop and look at the slides at your leisure through that. But again, if we can, we will provide that to you. And many of you have also asked about CPD, about being able to show that you attended the session. Yes, you can do that as well. When we email you again within the next 24 hours, you'll also get a link to apply for your CPD and get that to prove that you've attended the session. So with that, thank you all. That was great. You all asked a lot of great questions. You gave us a lot of kudos for it. Thank you for that as well. Tom, you did a great job on it.
Thank you very much.
Really, really appreciate that. And again, if you're watching on demand, feel free to ask questions also. Just email us at info@exemplarglobal.org and we'll get your questions over to Tom. I'm sure they'll get back to you at Intact very, very quickly. So thanks again. Thank you, Tom, again, for doing that. Really great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here. And we'll see you at the next webinar here from Exemplar Global. Thanks and so long.